Hey everyone, what's going on? So on March 4th, we got this mainstream media story about the former Amtrak engineer named Brandon Bostian and how he was found not guilty on his charges for when he wrecked the Philadelphia Amtrak on May 12th, 2015. And, just right away, isn't that kind of odd that they're just now finding him not guilty on all of these charges? It's almost 7 years ago, and they're just now coming out with a story about this. Seems pretty odd. And what's even more odd is that if you've been following my blog, I have at least 12 posts from now all the way back until September where I talked about I was following patterns in my life and how this Philadelphia train wreck seemed to be very important. And this Philadelphia train wreck was also synced up to that movie Trainwreck that came out with Amy Schumer in it that also had LeBron James. Of course, the very next day after this, LeBron James goes off and scores 56 points in a game, And I'll come back to this, but the reason that I was following all of this stuff with the Philadelphia train wreck, it had a lot to do with Batman and the Batman shooting that happened on July 20th of 2012. Remember, there was a theater shooting in Aurora, Colorado. And recall in 2015 when the movie Trainwreck came out, there was a shooting in Lafayette, and that was also at the movie theater. So there was a Trainwreck shooting that reminded us of the Batman shooting. And after that Trainwreck shooting, we got all kinds of stories in the media about Batman. Donald Trump said he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair. The shooter of the Batman shooting or whatever, James Egan Holmes, he got sentenced. Morgan Freeman's granddaughter died, and the mainstream media showed a picture of him and her at the Batman premiere, and some guy who dressed up like Batman and went around to hospitals died, and the actress Yvonne Craig, who played Batgirl, she died. There was all kinds of Batman stories that went on with it. And the reason that it's so important is because now we get the story about Brandon Bostian on the date 3/4, which just so happens to be the same day that this new Batman movie released. The one called The Batman with Robert Pattinson, right? The Batman. And if you go clear back to September, when I started following this theme, it had a lot to do with my book. That I had just received the first paperback copy of my book, and I was looking through it, and I noticed it said it was made in Middletown, Delaware, and I had there was these patterns that were linking up to some things with the film Trainwreck. And it's funny, my book is all about the number 86. I purposely did this. August 6th, 86, 806, 86, H is the 8th letter, F6. Triangle equals 86 in gematria, the color green equals 86. I did all of that on purpose, and I'm not going to get into it, but I'm telling you, for some weird reason, maybe it's because I made it on my old computer and the resolution was weird, but I swear this was more of a red color. And now it's an orange, and orange just so happens to equal 86. And I did not do that on purpose. And a whole bunch of other things, such as if you write out the synchronistic, it equals 224. 2 plus 2 plus 4 is 8. And if you write out understanding the world through signs, symbols, letters, and numbers, can't remember what it sums to, but if you add up the digits, it equals 6. 8 and 6, right? And just a whole bunch. I did it all by the number 86 because a big thing that I have been following is the date August 6th of 2022. It's a very important day that there's just something either symbolically that's going to happen that day that I'm supposed to learn from, or we're going to get a big event. And later I'll talk more about this. But the big thing with that Batman shooting in 2012 was, it was in Aurora, Colorado. That equals 86 in gematria, and the shooter was James Egan Holmes, who equals 86 in gematria, and the bad guy in the film is Bane, and Bane equals 86, and at the preview of that movie, they had a preview for the James Bond film called Skyfall, and in that preview, it had a building with the words Aurora written on it, and then Aurora, Colorado supposedly got shot up that same night, but Skyfall equals 86, also the actor who played Batman is Christian Bale on that. Christian Bale equals 86. And, of course, when they blow up the football stadium, number 86 Hines Ward runs the ball all the way down as the stadium blows up. So you know there's something important to the number 86. And I also went to a midnight showing of that film. It's the only midnight showing that I've ever been to in my entire life. And I went to that one. And I went there with my friend Joel McCall, whose name equals 86. His nickname is also Norm, and the Francis Bacon equals 86. And also my friend Chris Sturgill, and his name equals 86. And I talked about this earlier in the year, how he's born on the same day as Joe Biden, and his birthday was 86 days before the Super Bowl, and he is a humongous Cincinnati Bengals fan. But another reason I'm bringing this up is look at what Brandon Bostian equals in gematria. Brandon Bostian also equals 86. And if you go back to this post where I talked about my book and the number 86 and so on, I even wrote down here, let me find it here. I know I wrote it in here. So are we going to get a theater shooting, a train wreck, or a volcano eruption coming up? And then a couple days later, we got a volcano eruption in Hawaii. I think it was like the first one since 2018 or something like that. And then we also got the very next day, so this was on September 24th, the very next day, there was an Amtrak derailment in Joplin, Montana. It's like, what are the odds? There was an Amtrak derailment right after I'm talking about, are we going to get some train wreck stories and so on? And it just happens to be in Joplin, Montana. And I even wrote how Joplin makes me think of the Joplin, Missouri tornado and also Janis Joplin. And that's why I think we recently got this story in the news. 3 police officers shot in Joplin, Missouri, right? It's like, so we get this Brandon Bostian story. Now we're getting, we got the Iowa tornado in Des Moines, right? Think about Des Moines. That's where Donald Trump said he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair and a whole bunch more. And then now we're getting a story of a shooting in Joplin, Missouri. So I really think that's part of the narrative of why they recently put this story out, because it's connected back to this train symbolism with that Montana train derailment. And so that guy gets dropped all of his charges on the day that the Batman comes out. But if you go to, and there was other train stories too, right after this, we got like a train shooting at the Amtrak station in Tucson, Arizona, and some guy supposedly raped some girl on a train was another mainstream story. But on Halloween, we also got another train wreck or train story, and it was some guy in Japan who dressed up like the Joker from Batman and how he stabbed a bunch of people on a train, right? It's like, so once again, you knew it was connected to Batman because of this. And we later got a story about like, I can't even remember what it was. Elijah, let's see if I can type in Asian and see if it comes up. On November 21st, there was an Aurora, Colorado story next to the anti-Asian train attack in Philadelphia, right? Let's see if I can find it here. Right here. Aurora, Colorado to pay $15 million to Elijah McClain's family, blah, blah, blah. And then right below it, 4 teens were charged for anti-Asian attack on Philadelphia train. Think about that in relation to the guy dressed up like the Joker in Japan and so on, right? And once again, Aurora right next to the Philadelphia train story. So I knew there was something important to this, Philadelphia train wreck. And then here we are on the anniversary of the day the Batman releases, we get the story about Brandon Bostian and all of his charges being dropped 7 years later, so odd. But anyway, let me go back. I want to kind of re-explain some of these things and why it came to be and how these patterns eventually led me to, think of this narrative. And remember was it September 14th, I think it was, we got the death of Norm Macdonald, the guy from Saturday Night Live and the Weekend Update and so on. And his death was all linked up to James Bond. And I'm not going to re-explain all this, but just think about Celebrity Jeopardy and Sean Connery. And I had also earlier predicted that Sean Connery was the guy to watch out for. Then Sean Connery died. I said I was connected to the moon and, Batman and so on, right? The James Bond film was in the previews at the Batman shooting, and it said the word Aurora on the building in the preview, and then Aurora, Colorado got shot up, right? So Norm Macdonald died. It was all synced up to James Bond. Then a few days later on September 19th, we got a story about another Saturday Night Live guy, Chris Rock, supposedly getting coronavirus and so on. And when I was reading through the article or whatever, I noticed they put this picture of him with Amy Schumer. And I thought, oh, that's kind of weird, you know? Amy Schumer. And earlier in the day, I got this notification about Amy Schumer getting her uterus and appendix removed. So I was like, I wonder if there's something important to Amy Schumer. And I had been following a whole bunch of stuff with San Francisco and the San Francisco Giants because the 1989 World Series was the 86th World Series, and that was the Earthquake World Series, where it was Philadelphia versus Oakland. It was the same city World Series and a whole bunch of stuff. The 86th World Series was the Earthquake World Series. And Amy Schumer was also in the movie Trainwreck. And when that movie Trainwreck came out, there was a whole bunch of stuff connected to San Francisco around that time. And this Philadelphia Trainwreck, it happened on May 12th, 2015, but it happened at 9:23 p.m. And we knew that it was important. A lot of people were talking about the number 923 and Pope Francis's upcoming visit in 2015. And he ended up coming to America on his 923rd day as Pope. And the next day he went to the White House on 923, and all of the mainstream media articles showed a picture of him arriving at the White House at 9:23 in the morning. So we knew it was this big thing with Pope Francis and so on. And so we had that Philadelphia train wreck. And Philadelphia is also where he finished his trip to America, was in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is in the book of Revelation. It's one of the churches and so on, right? So we thought there was something important. Also, right after he left, there was that fourth blood moon of the Tetrad. And so people were just following this date like crazy. And he also left on the Jesuit anniversary. He's the first Jesuit pope. And after that Philadelphia train wreck, then the movie Trainwreck with LeBron James came out. And LeBron James, in Jewish gematria, his name just so happens to equal 923. And he had just lost to the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. And Golden State, of course, in the San Francisco Bay Area. Golden State equals 122. San Francisco equals 122. It's located on the 122nd meridian. If you write out Pope Francis equals 122. Also, if you write out Trainwreck, it equals 122. And Pope Francis is named after St. Francis of Assisi, and that is also what San Francisco was named after. So there was this big narrative, and so the Philadelphia train wreck, then the film Trainwreck comes out. And the film Trainwreck also starts when Amy Schumer is 9 years old, and then the rest of the movie takes place 23 years later, 923. And of course, Philadelphia and San Francisco have this, related connection even. Think about the Golden State Warriors, who used to be the Philadelphia Warriors, and a whole bunch more, right? So I wondered if there was something important to the film Trainwreck. And then a few days later, let's see if I can find my post here, the paperback thing of my book came. And I mean, I'd had it for a few days, but I was just kind of like looking through it, making sure that everything looked all right. And then I looked at the very back of it that day, and I noticed it said it was made in Middletown, Delaware. And I was just like, I wonder, I'm the type of person I look into it and find the meaning and so on, right? Because that's a lot what this knowledge is. Everything is purposeful. Everything kind of happens for a reason. And when I looked up Middletown, Delaware, it was like a really small town, really, like compared to big. It was like 18,000 people, which compared to where I live is really huge, but it's not really that big. And the only thing that it really talked about was that there was just a few things. It said the 1989 film Dead Poets Society starring Robin Williams was filmed there. And this stuck out to me right away. 1989, that Earthquake World Series, right? And the 86th World Series. And Robin Williams also he started his comedy in San Francisco. And Robin Williams also died on August 11th. And in 2019, a huge day in the truth community that we were following was the date August 11th. And it was synced up to San Francisco. And that was also when Tisha B'Av began. And that's why I think August 6th this year is so important. Well, this was the second day of Tisha B'Av, but August 6th this year is the beginning of Tisha B'Av. And these days are also interesting, because 923 was huge within the truth community on YouTube and such. You know, in 2015, everybody, it seemed, was talking about 923. And then the August 11th thing came up, and it seemed like so many people were talking about August 11th and so on. And I don't know, I just feel like August 6th has the same feel to me. Even though it seems like I'm like the only person really following it, you know. I don't have a big following on YouTube, so nobody really knows all of these things that I'm talking about, but it just seems to have that same level of importance. And one thing I do know is that I learned a whole lot of things after 923. Seemed like my level of consciousness like rose, you know what I mean? And same with August 11th. I learned a whole lot more about gematria and just in general, just a lot of the way things work and patterns and so on. So August 6th really could be that, but it just seems like there's something even more important. And this was linked up to the Pope, and this day is really linked up to the Pope and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So I'll explain that in a little while, but you know, there's something important. And Pope Francis is going to be 86 years old this year, so JFK actually met the Pope, and he died, 144 days after meeting the Pope and so on. But that Pope that he met died on the date August 6th. And he met that Pope 86 days before that Pope's birthday. So it's an interesting thing about when you think about Joe Biden and JFK both being the Catholic presidents and such. But moral of the story, I saw Robin Williams in there, and I just had this comment from somebody talking about Robin Williams and Inspector Gadget. So I was like, you know, there's got to be something with this film called The Dead Poets Society. And it's funny they mentioned Inspector Gadget too, because in the English extended cipher, Inspector Gadget equals 811, right? The day that Robin Williams died. But I was just looking up the film, and another like major person in this film was the actor named Norman Lloyd. And I looked up Norman Lloyd, and as I was reading about this guy, it said that his final movie was the movie Trainwreck. And I was like, there's got to be something important to this then. And he died at the age of 106. And if you go back to that Philadelphia train wreck, it was very important to the number 106. They said that it was going 106 miles an hour, and it had like the number 601 written on it. And we had all kinds of train symbolism and train stories that were going on in 2015 after that. We had some story about a guy named Nicholas Winton who saved Jews on a train, who died at the age of 106. And like Jared from Subway was arrested for molesting kids or whatever it was. And then there was that French train attack in Fowles, France, or however you say it. And one of the guys that saved the people on the train was Alex Scarlatos. And of course, then on Jimmy Carter's birthday that year, October 1st, we got that Roseburg, Oregon shooting. And Alex Scarlatos was actually from Roseburg, Oregon. I think he went to that same college that got shot up even. And there was an interesting parallel there too that was synced up to JFK and RFK, because RFK had gave a speech like 10 days before he died in Roseburg, Oregon, and there was a big narrative with 10 days later and the number 144 and meeting the Pope and a bunch of stuff with people being assassinated, you know. So once again, this date, August 6th, it makes me wonder, but I'll try to come back and explain that a little bit better. But remember, Donald Trump met Pope Francis on the 144th day of the year, and it was, you know, his 4th month and 4th day of meeting the Pope. And if you write out 44, it equals 144. And Abe Lincoln got shot on 14/4, and a whole bunch more, you know. A big JFK died on the first day of Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is 144. And then his brother RFK, didn't he die at like 144 in the morning or something like that too? I'll have to go back and look, but moral of the story, this guy died age 106, and 106 is also this big number we've followed with Philadelphia for a long time, because I remember in 2015, the big thing I was following with basketball And the Golden State Warriors, it was linked up to Valentine's Day. And of course, Golden State, they won the NBA Finals 122 days after Valentine's Day. Remember, they equal 122, like Pope Francis and so on. And later that year, the Kansas City Royals won the World Series, and Kansas City equals 122. And a guy dressed up like the Pope caught a home run ball on 6-6 that year at the Kansas City game. So that's what made me think I later changed my mind thinking that the Royals would be in the World Series and a whole bunch more. But 106 is important. Michael Jordan, Zach LaVine was the player who won the slam dunk contest on Valentine's Day that year. And he did the Michael Jordan Space Jam dunk. And there was all kinds of Michael Jordan stories. I mean, I'm telling you, like, there's just a million stories about Michael Jordan in the media around that time. I have a whole bunch of videos on it. And I later, like, was connecting it to Philadelphia, and I realized that the capital of the country, Jordan, was called Philadelphia until the year 106 AD, and then it was destroyed by earthquakes. And I was following this other narrative with Philadelphia and bridges in 2015 when we got that Bridgewater shooting with Ronda Rousey, or Roddy Piper had died, and then Ronda Rousey won her fight in 34 seconds, but then we got that Bridgewater shooting, and that Bridgewater shooting was people shooting up the news like Roddy Piper's movie They Live, and that was linked up to Hulk Hogan as well, and Hulk Hogan got his revenge against Earthquake in Philadelphia at the Spectrum, and the Comcast Center in Philadelphia has the black cube on the top that looks, the black cube is supposedly representative of the New Jerusalem, which is important to Tisha B'Av, right? August 6th and so on. And that's also important to the number 144 because it's 12 times 12,000 or whatever of the tribes of Israel, the people who get to go to the New Jerusalem and so on. 12 times 144,000 or 12,000 times 12,000 or whatever. So, and there's a bunch of other interesting things, even like in the movie Happy Gilmore, he's wearing the Warriors jersey, and he learns how to putt on the Earthquake golf course exactly 107 minutes into the movie, or 1 hour and 7 minutes, like 107, and the word earthquake equals 107. But the earthquake knocks over a building that has a black cube on the top that looks like the Comcast Center in Philadelphia. And there a whole bunch more. That's why I started thinking the Eagles were going to be in the Super Bowl even more so in 2018 because there was a earthquake that was felt in Philadelphia just before that. It was a 4.1 earthquake. Then the Eagles won with 41 points in the Super Bowl, and the word Super Bowl equals 41, and a whole bunch more. But moral of the story that's 106, Michael Jordan, he retired on the date 10/6, one of his first time he retired. And then he finished his career in Philadelphia. And Zach LaVine, he was born on the date 3/10, which is the exact same day that Michael Jordan actually retired from baseball. So I knew there was this relationship with these guys. And then think about this year. I talked about last year in the middle of the season how I think the Bulls are going to have a good season this year. And the Bulls are important symbolically, and the Bulls have just been tearing it up, right? And I'm starting to think that it might be just connected to Philadelphia too, because they just got James Harden, and it's the 76th season of the NBA, and Philadelphia 76ers, and Michael Jordan finishing his career against the Philadelphia, and I don't know. Now we're getting this Philadelphia Trainwreck story, which I've been following the Golden State Warriors with all this too, so we'll see what happens. And Golden State Warriors also have the colors of Ukraine, right? The blue and the yellow. That's like the Rams had the blue and the yellow. And just like how the Phoenix Mercury lost to the Chicago Sky in the WNBA finals. Think about Brittany Griner and so on, who played for the Mercury. But the Sky also have the colors of Ukraine. And then you got like, can't even think of the guy's name right now, Sean McVay, who has a Ukrainian girlfriend and a bunch of more. It's like, how in the world do people not catch on to this? But, just interesting. And, Philadelphia is also interesting with this whole narrative I've been following with Rocky and the horse theme. And Brittany Griner, born in the year of a horse, also. And I just blogged about how the 2014 Super Bowl was really important to the Broncos and the Seahawks, and Neptune is the god of the sea and horses, and that Super Bowl just so happened to be held during the Chinese horse year. And then the very next day, we get Russell Wilson, the quarterback of the Seahawks that year, who played the Broncos in the Super Bowl, get traded to the Broncos. And then, talk about how it's connected to Peyton Manning. And then Peyton Manning, think about Peyton Manning, played for the Broncos and the Colts. And then today, the story was that Carson Wentz is getting traded to from the Indianapolis Colts and so on, right? It's like the horse teams, the Colts and the Broncos. But moral of the story, this 106, it was important. So I see this guy died at age 106. And he died on May 11th, one day shy of the Trainwreck. And if you go from May 11th to the date, October 6th, it's 148 days. Meaning that the Trainwreck that happened in Philadelphia was also a span of 148 days before October 6th. And another thing to keep in mind is October 6th on the Gregorian calendar is also 9/23 on the Julian calendar. And recall in 2019, when I was talking about the August 11th stuff, the other date that was really important to that was August 24th, because August 24th on the Gregorian calendar was August 11th on the Julian calendar. And that was the day that Andrew Luck of the Colts retired, and a whole bunch more, 8/24, and think about Kobe Bryant and his numbers, and there was all kinds of stuff that was linked up to that. The Rock was linked up to Kobe Bryant, and Shane McMahon had been in a helicopter crash, and that was Vince McMahon's birthday. But anyway, 148 days, and if you write out Trainwreck, it equals 148. And that Trainwreck shooting was in Lafayette, that equals 148. And Brandon Bostian also equals 148. This guy known for the Trainwreck, right? Trainwreck 148. Lafayette. Talked about a whole bunch of stuff. It's interesting that I was looking back at some of my old videos because of this, and I talked about the Fibonacci numbers a whole lot. And that's something I kind of just quit doing. But way back when I was talking about this a lot. I even spelled Fibonacci wrong in the video, and I pointed out that I did that. But a big thing that Zenith had pointed out to me with this book is that I did it all by the Fibonacci sequence, and I didn't even realize that I did that, And I'll leave a link in the description, but like 6 and 8 have a big relationship with triangle numbers and the Fibonacci sequence, but I actually released the paperback on August 13th of 21, and if you look at the Fibonacci sequence, it literally has 8, then the next one is 13, then the next one is 21. So, and I've been following that Fibonacci cipher just for, the Fibonacci cipher seems to be important. I just don't fully understand it, and I feel like maybe August 6th of this coming year is like when I'm going to start learning that the importance of this, that's something that, just like how with the August 11th event, I learned that the Francis Bacon ciphers were just stupidly important. And I've been using them pretty much ever since, even, before, leading up to it, and afterward, and they no doubt are absolutely important. So I think after August 6th, I'm going to learn something very big with Fibonacci and how it's linked into all of this. So, but I guess, I talked about all that stuff, and then, so the Amy Schumer stuff, then I see my book, and I look at my book with Middletown, Delaware, and then it leads me to the Trainwreck stuff. Then we get the Trainwreck in Montana, then we get all them other Trainwreck stories, then we get the story about the guy dressed like the Joker. I also talked about Lindsay Lohan at some point in here. Maybe it's this one. Because I talked about how the Joplin, Missouri train reminded me of Janis Joplin and also the Joplin, Missouri tornado. And Joplin also equals 86 in gematria. But it's interesting, Montana's 221 as well. I wrote the volcano number, but the word Batman also equals 221, and so does Aurora, Colorado. But when I was looking up an old post about Janis Joplin, in that post, I talked about San Francisco. And then in 2015, right before Pope Francis's visit, we also had the actor from the movie Love Bug, Herbie the Love Bug, die, named Dean Jones. And I talked about how that was important to the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the movie Tommy Boy with Herbie Hancock and a bunch of stuff. But I rewatched the movie Love Bug with Lindsay Lohan, the newer one. And in that movie, she just so happens to be wearing a shirt with the Golden Gate Bridge and a blood moon on it, right? And think about Pope Francis's visit in the United States that was linked up to San Francisco. And it also was the fourth blood moon of the Tetrad and so on. So I was like, Lindsay Lohan was important. And her father in this film is Michael Keaton. And Michael Keaton just so happens to be the guy who portrayed Batman in the 1989 film Batman or whatever. And, think about that once again, 1989, the year of the Earthquake World Series in San Francisco, the 86th World Series. And I went on to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. Joe Biden also met Pope Francis as the vice president, right, that year when Pope Francis went to the White House. And Lindsay D. Lohan equaled 148. And there was also a story in the media right around that time about Nicole Richie and lighting her hair on fire. So I wondered if there was something important to Paris Hilton. And then like a month later, Paris Hilton was in the news because she got married. And then like a week after that, we got a story about how Lindsay Lohan was also got engaged. And Paris Hilton was linked up to, in 2015, if you go back, there was a Hotels.com commercial that had a bunch of things. Like there was a conspiracy guy and it had like the number 239 in the background. And 239, of course, is a lot like 923, right? And the date can be written that way, 23/9. It also said blackout dates, and a bunch of people were following it. Then we got the Paris, France attack, the ISIS attack, and that was also linked up to Pope Francis with the Francis Bacon ciphers. But there was a story like the same day that Kim Kardashian got robbed in Paris, France of her jewelry. Pretty sure it was like the same day we got a story about Lindsay Lohan cutting off her ring finger in a boating accident too. So then she gets married or gets engaged, and think about her ring finger. I just feel like there's something important to France with that narrative. But the whole thing, I just wanted to point out that, Lindsay Lohan, I talked about Lindsay Lohan, Nicole Richie, Paris Hilton. They all were important again. But anyway, I want to go back to my post here from when I talked about Brandon Bostian being found not guilty, because there's some interesting things that kind of are still building up, and I'm trying to figure out the meaning to them. But in this blog post, I've been recently talking a lot about this dream theme. And around the same time that I was blogging about these train stuff, there was also a major theme that involved dreams and the angel Gabriel and the name Daniel and my name being Daniel, and how the Daniel in the Bible, he can, he sees like vision, dreams and stuff. He has dreams and visions, and it all has to do with the angel Gabriel. And there was a whole bunch of things that led me up to that. But even like Robin Williams was in that movie, What Dreams May Come. And I almost rewatched that movie around the same time. And like the Everly Brothers guy had died. And they have that song like dreams, 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 and a bunch more. But all of that eventually led me to this. The stuff I've been recently talking about is this dream that I had that involved the FIU bridge collapse and my dad dying. And what's interesting is that all of that dream stuff I was talking about back in September, I mentioned how when I was in high school, I had a dream about one of my friends and how her dad died in a car wreck. And the very next day, he actually died. And his name just so happened to be Daniel. And I was following this pattern with Daniel and the angel Gabriel and so on. And when I was trying to find that guy's like what day he died or when he was born and so on. And it turns out I went to his wife's Facebook, and it turns out she's actually a psychic. And I was like, what in the world? So I had a dream about a psychic lady's husband dying, and then he died, I mean, that was in high school, and I didn't tell anybody about it, only my mom, and because it really bothered me, and I still haven't reached out to that lady or nothing, but moral of the story, I eventually found that guy's birthday, or it was his death day, and it was June 4th, and then I had synchronicity with a wedding, and a wedding invitation that was on uh, my refrigerator. It was the date 6/4 and a bunch of stuff. But in this post, I talked about that, and I talked about how Joe Biden joked about Amtrak at Bob Dole's funeral, and Joe Biden also used to ride the Amtrak and a whole bunch of stuff. And Joe Biden equals 64, like the date 6/4, and the word Amtrak equals 64. And in 2015, my uncle Mike actually died, and he just so happened to have a birthday of 6/4, but the day that he died was the same day as the Philadelphia Trainwreck, May 12th, 2015. And I've just been talking about how he was important forever. Like, all of my uncles on my mom, like my mom had 8 brothers and sisters. Every single one of them that has died so far, what is that? There was, well, trying to think. Barney, Clancy, Kelly, Mike, and Lorraine. They all died in connection to the Jesuits. Every single one of them died connected to the Jesuits. And, my Uncle Mike died on the same day as the Philadelphia train wreck. That was on the 132nd day of the year at Catholic Church, 132. And I think he was like a 4th degree Knight of Columbus and a bunch of stuff. But I'm just pointing out his birthday was 6/4. And in this post, I talked about it, right? The one about Brandon Bostian, and let's see what else I talked about in here. And I'm going to explain this in a second, but I also found out that there was actually a theater shooting in July this year in Corona, California. Think about that. Corona, California, during the time of coronavirus. And if you look up that shooting, it was 221 days before March 4th, the day the Batman movie came out. Of course, Batman equals 221, Aurora, Colorado. It's also 7 months and 6 days. The word Joker equals 76. But anyway, I just wanted to point out, the main thing I wanted to point out in this post is that I mentioned how my Uncle Mike had died the same day as the Philadelphia train wreck. It's something I've pointed out a whole lot. And the very next day, I got up to go to work and so on, and I got in the car to go to work, and well, actually, no. Where is this? Yeah, it was the next day, but I just clicked on the wrong post. I woke up before work, and I was randomly watching some Facebook videos, and the last thing I watched was this Jared Dines video, and it reset, so I had to go back and take the screenshot, but it was somewhere further in the video. The last thing I watched was like this clip of some band singing a Bon Jovi song, and then the guy quit the band. And then I was like, oh crap, I better leave. It's like, I got to go to work. And I work at 9, and it was like, apparently I took the screenshot at 9:11, but whatever. The last thing I watched was Bon Jovi. Then I got in the car, and the song Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi was on. And yeah, my car is freaking dirty, but whatever. I drive it like 2 miles every day. But I was like, dude, Bon Jovi's on, and I just listened to Bon Jovi, and I started going, I wonder if there's going to be like a weird Bon Jovi synchronicity day, there's something important. And I went to work, and nothing ever happened, really. There wasn't Bon Jovi playing, nobody said anything, and I thought, I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy. And every Monday and Thursday, I have to leave for like 15 minutes and go pick up my son from preschool and then bring him back to our house. Mostly because it's like really cold out, and I have my 2-year-old here too. That way the babysitter doesn't have to walk and get him. I just pick him up and bring him to the house to the babysitter. But I went and picked him up, and when I got out of the van, my Aunt Rosa was up there, and she was picking up her nephew, who also goes to that preschool. And the first thing she says to me is, hey, did you hear that did you hear that there's some Bon Jovi cover band contest going on, and when Bon Jovi plays in Omaha, your band can open up for him? And I was like, no, but that's, I was thinking, man, that's interesting. she just randomly asks me about Bon Jovi and tells me this thing about this contest. Apparently there's I looked it up when I got back to work, but apparently there's some contest you can submit your band a song and a video, and then Bon Jovi's going to choose one of these bands that's going to open up their concert on April 1st in Omaha. But the reason that it stuck out to me so much is that my Aunt Rosa, who actually said this to me, her husband was my Uncle Mike, the guy who died on the same day as the Philadelphia train wreck. And what's even funnier is earlier this year I had Synchronicity with Bon Jovi, and I made a blog post about it on 9/7, and then on 54 days later, on Halloween, we got a story about John Bon Jovi getting coronavirus. And of course, John Bon Jovi equals 54, and it's 54 days later. But just think about this in relation to Batman, right? We had the Batman guy dressed like Batman who stabbed people on the train on Halloween as well. And then I also had the synchronicity with John Bon Jovi on that very same day. So it just makes me think I'll explain why it's important, but it's just interesting. It's connected back to that Batman thing. And I pointed out how Bon Jovi equals 139 and 154, and my aunt's name equals 154, and her real name equals 139. And her husband, my Uncle Mike, who died, his name is 139. And he died 139 days before the Jesuit anniversary. And of course, Freemasonry 139 and 191, and Mike Murphy 191. Society of Jesus 191. Talked about the Philadelphia train wreck being on the 132nd day. Catholic Church 132. The word cancer is also 132, and he died of cancer. I also have recently mentioned this date with this major theme I'm following with the horse theme and whatnot, the date 310, which is just now, 6 minutes into it. But a long time ago, I also talked about the number 310 in 2018 leading up to the Tisha B'Av thing. And 310 was a really, really big number with that in France and so on. And I had synchronicity at that time, and I learned that my uncle's full name equaled 310. So I was like, that's what I'm supposed to see with him. Because his death was like not as related as everybody else's. And like he was the only one that was kind of like the oddball of like the connections. Because everybody else equaled 166 except for him. And I noticed he equaled 310. So I thought it was important. So we'll see what happens on 310. I'm really watching this day. But I then just started looking into things, and I noticed that the Philadelphia train wreck, the anniversary of it, was 9 months and 23 days before I had the synchronicity with Bon Jovi, 9/23. And if you go from the day I had the synchronicity to 9/23, it's also 201 days. So 201 days to 9/23, and then it's 9 months and 23 days after the anniversary of that Philadelphia train wreck. Of course, 201, the big number that we've associated with the Jesuits. And then, Pope Francis, the first Jesuit pope, the big thing with him was the date 9/23. So then I went from Pope Francis's birthday to the day of this synchronicity, and it just so happens to be 2 months and 19 days. And I've been following this number like crazy. If you watch all my previous videos, the 219, this huge number with this horse narrative that I've been following. And the Philadelphia train wreck just so happened to be 219 days before Pope Francis's birthday. And he also, in relation to 8/6, he became the Pope 86 days after his birthday. The Philadelphia train wreck was 86 days before August 6th. And if you go from 8/6, it's 8/6 is 219 days before Pope Francis's anniversary as being the Pope. So there is this interrelated pattern. And he's going to turn 86 years old this year. 8/6 is a span of 233 days after his birthday. His real name's Jorge Bergoglio, that equals 233. 9/23 is a span of 86 days before Pope Francis's birthday. Or that meant he arrived in America 86 days before his birthday as well. Also 8/6 is a span of 1 month and 22 days before the Jesuit anniversary. And Pope Francis equals 122, San Francisco 122, Golden State, Trainwreck, so on. And let's see here. The Trainwreck was also 122 days before 9/11. August 6th is important to 9/11. Tisha B'Av is important to 9/11, but August 6th was the day World Trade Center construction began in the year 68. And it was on the 219th day of the year, right? Because it was a leap year, which is the 219th day of the year. So that the train wreck, once again, remember, had a lot to do with the number 106. Well, Joe Biden's birthday is 106 days after August 6th. And the train wreck was 133 days before Pope Francis arrived in America in 2015. 8/6 is 133 days before Pope Francis's birthday. So, and the word president's 133, and Kamala Harris equals 86 in gematria. What stood out to me even more with this, and why I think that it is connected to Joe Biden and such, in this date, August 6th, I think it's really important, is that my Aunt Rosa, who was there at the preschool talking about Bon Jovi, she was there to pick up her grandson, and her grandson just so happens to be named Bo. And that reminds me of Joe Biden's son, Bo Biden. And Bo Biden just so happened to die just after that Philadelphia train wreck in 2015. He died 18 days after the Philadelphia train wreck. And he died 116 days after his birthday and 116 days before 9/23. And if you write out Joe Biden and Francis Bacon, it equals 116. And my aunt's name, Rosa Murphy, equals 116. So it just makes me think it's connected to, what are the odds that she's there to pick up her son named Bo, or her grandson named Bo? And his name equals 201 in gematria. That I don't want to write his name in here because, he's a little kid and whatever, and people get mad about that apparently, but his name equals 201 in the Francis Bacon gematria. And Bo Biden died 201 days before Pope Francis's birthday. And so JFK died after meeting the Pope, and JFK met the Pope on 7/2. Let me pull this post up really quick. But a big thing with JFK and Biden is that they're both Catholic, right? JFK was the 35th president, and Biden is now the 46th president. They're the only Catholic presidents. JFK died at the age of 46. So did Bo Biden. He died at the age of 46. And the word Catholic equals 35 and 46. And JFK, and think about 9/23, and that Joe Biden met Pope Francis as the vice president even, or, he was there for the visit. So he, at least, if it wasn't the first time, he at least saw Pope Francis on that visit, right? So anyway, I looked up the Pope that JFK met, and it was this guy, and he just so happened to die on August 6th, 8/6. And Joe Biden actually met him on July 2nd, which was 86 days before that Pope's birthday. And I'll come back to that post, but Obama was the president when Pope Francis came to America, right? And if Pope Francis and Joe Biden met on the anniversary of the stock market crash in 2021, 10/29/21, and that was 86 days after Barack Obama's birthday, right? And Kamala Harris is all linked up to the stock market as well, right? Born on the same day that Herbert Hoover died. Think about Iowa in relation to remember, the same day that Donald Trump met Pope Francis was the same day that Iowa Governor Terry Branstad had stepped down to become the ambassador to China. And then Iowa governor right now is Kim Reynolds, who became the governor that day, the same day Donald Trump met Pope Francis. And then the same day Joe Biden met Pope Francis, we got the story about Kim Reynolds saying that if you got fired for coronavirus, then you could still get unemployment and so on. And that was on the anniversary of the stock market crash. Joe Biden met Pope Francis that day. Of course, the Iowa president, Herbert Hoover, was the president during the stock market crash, and a whole lot more. Remember with Squid Game, the number 456, and Trump met the Pope 456 days before Biden, and that's why the number 219 was also important, because it was 456 days after Biden's birthday was the date 219. But Barack Obama equals 456, right? So it's just interesting. It was 86 days after Obama's birthday. And also, when you think about it, if you go from the date August 6th to Halloween, when I had that John Bon Jovi sync, right? And the same day that there was the Joker guy stabbing people on a train. August 6th to Halloween is also 86 days. So just seems there's something very important. It's also important to Queen. I kind of skipped over that, but when so whatever, I watched this video with Bon Jovi, then I got in the car and Bon Jovi was on. And then I went up to pick up my son and I noticed that the song Bohemian Rhapsody was playing. And that just stood out to me because this has been a very important song to the symbolism that I have been following. And since 2015, the same year as that Trainwreck shooting, I was following this narrative with Kanye West and Slipknot and the song Bohemian Rhapsody. And in 2018, after Kanye West had went to the White House, we got the news that Slipknot was going to be performing at the Iowa State Fair for the first time ever. They're the band from Des Moines, Iowa, and so on. And that's where Donald Trump said he was Batman in a helicopter. But the tickets went on sale the same day that the movie Bohemian Rhapsody had came out. And there was this big old narrative with it. And it was all pointing to Tisha B'Av that year, August 10th and August 11th, when Slipknot was going to be playing at the Iowa State Fair. And it was all linked up to China. And, you know, August 11th, the big thing was with Hong Kong and a whole bunch more. But the moral of the story is that I thought it was interesting that song was playing. I was like, that song's playing. Then I get out and then I go talk to my aunt and she brings up Bon Jovi right away. So I just, once again, it makes me think of that Tisha B'Av narrative, right? And so then I got off work and I came home and I was writing up this blog post and then I took a little bit of a nap and so on, and it was like really late and I didn't want to cook, so I just ordered some pizzas at the gas station I work at and I drove back down to get the pizzas. And when I got in the car that time, there was another Queen song that was on the radio. And I was like, what are the odds? Queen's on again. It's been Bon Jovi and Queen. And I also blogged about Bon Jovi and the royal family back in that post or whatever, right on Halloween. So, and on that same post, let's see if I can find it here. I'm pretty sure I blogged about the Queen. Or no, I didn't blog about, let's see. Yeah, I blogged about John Bon Jovi and the royal family in this post. So just think about it. Bon Jovi and Queen. But also, on this same day, my daughter's bird named Queenie died. And I had some weird synchronicity with the Trainwreck stuff. I was DJing in Charter Oak, Iowa that equaled 148, like Trainwreck. And I came home and my daughter's bird cage was like sitting in the bedroom. And I was like, why isn't it in my bedroom? And then the next day I found out that her bird named Queenie had died. And I was like, what are the odds? The bird Queenie, because I was following this date with Queen Elizabeth because of the numbers 610 and 106, right? 106, 610. Prince Philip was born on June 10th, which can also be written as 10/6. And that all had to do with the film Blade Runner that had the horse toy with the number 61021 written on it or whatever. So it's just interesting. Maybe it is something to do with Queen Elizabeth. Maybe August 6th is important to her. You know, I'm just trying to piece that together, but it's interesting. The same day, and I talk about the Queen, and then I have these synchronicities with Queen and also Bon Jovi. My Aunt Rosa's name in Francis Bacon equals the same as Queen Elizabeth. Further, I know that it's important to August 6th because if you go from John Bon Jovi's birthday to August 6th, it's 5 months and 4 days. And once again, that synchronicity I had with John Bon Jovi was how we got coronavirus 54 days after my blog post about him, and his name equaled 54. You know, and then August 6th is also 5 months and 4 days before or after his birthday. Also, if you go from the day I had that synchronicity with John Bon Jovi again, March 7th to August 6th, it's 152 days. And Joe Biden equals 152. Kamala Devi Harris equals 152. Joe Biden also equals 37, and the date was 3/7. So I feel like there's something really important to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, especially her name equals 86. It's linked up to Pope Francis, Joe Biden meeting Pope Francis as the president, and so on. Let's go back to this other post here really quick. Well, I actually said this wrong. So the other Queen song was playing when I got off of work because I had started that blog post at work. But then I came home and whatever, took a nap and all that, and then I went back to get pizza, and Bon Jovi was playing again. So it's like, I wake up to Bon Jovi, then Bon Jovi's playing in the car. I go to work, I start writing this blog post. Or I go to work, then I have the sync with my aunt, then I start writing the blog post, and then when I left work, there was another Queen song playing, and then, yeah, then I went back to work to make them pizzas, and Bon Jovi was playing, and I was like, out of all the songs that can be playing on the radio, it's only been Queen and Bon Jovi, and that time it was You Give Love a Bad Name. And I just started looking more into it. I was like, huh. So I went from September 23rd, 2015, the day that Pope Francis went to the White House, to the day that Joe Biden met Pope Francis as the president. And it was 6 years, 1 month, 6 days. And I've been saying that this Fibonacci cipher seems important because of my book and all that, and the number 86. And Bon Jovi equals 616 in that. So I was like, huh, there must be something important to that. And, JFK also equals 616 in the Jewish. And some people even say that the number of the beast is actually 616 instead of 666. And it just stands out to me with the radio station that it's on, 99.9, the upside down 666, right? And who knows? I'm just throwing that out there. I don't even know why it's on this radio. I don't even listen to the radio, but my girlfriend's mom also drives the car pretty much more than I drive it. So maybe it's from her. I mean, usually I don't even have the radio on because I only drive it, 3 blocks to my job, and then I come home. But sometimes I get a ride. I don't even drive it. So it's interesting that the radio is even on that day, but in relation to that, I just pointed out Mark of the Beast equals 54 and 144, like John Bon Jovi equals 54 and 144. Pope Francis became the Pope 144 days after Kamala Harris's birthday. JFK met the Pope a span of 144 days before he died. Trump met the Pope on the 144th day of the year. Plus, all that train symbolism, like I said, in 2015, there was that French train attack with Alex Scarlettos, and then on Jimmy Carter's birthday, like a couple months later, we got the Roseburg, Oregon school shooting, and that's where Alex Scarlettos was from. And Roseburg is also where JFK's brother, gave a speech 10 days before he died. And then, if you write out 10 days before, I think it equals 144. And he died at 144 in the morning, and a bunch of stuff with 144. And, it's just, Abe Lincoln got shot in 14/4. And the first president to die in office was William Henry Harrison, who died on 4/4. If you write out 44, it's 144. So just an interesting pattern, especially when you think about how William Henry Harrison was the 9th president, and then his grandson, Benjamin Harrison, was the 23rd president, 923, right? Think about Michael Jordan, too, who wore the number 9 on the Dream Team, right? For the Olympics, the Dream Team, emphasis on that. And then he wore the number 23. And in the movie Space Jam, they even put these two jerseys together, right? 923. Of course, the 9th prime number is 23, and it's a whole lot more. They got a deeper relationship. That's why his father died on the 23rd day, but then they didn't find his body until 9 days later. But you know what? Thinking about Michael Jordan, too, just thinking about this here. Didn't his father died on July 23rd, wasn't it? which is the same day as the Trainwreck shooting. Let's see here. Michael Jordan's Jeffrey Jordan or something like that. What's his name? I can't believe we can't see it. Oh, there it is. James Jordan. Or no, he died 9 days. That's what it was. He died 9 days before his birthday, right? And he died on the 23rd day of July. But July 23rd is the same day as the Lafayette Trainwreck shooting. And July 23rd is also an interesting day because that's Neptunalia. And I'm following this big horse theme, right? And Neptune is the god of horses and so on. And so July 23rd is also Neptunalia. Let's point this out really quick. Neptunalia is July 23rd. But the planet Neptune was founded on September 23rd, right? So it seems that it's important to Neptune still. Like all of these things seem to go back to Neptune. And Pope Francis even became the Pope during the time of Pisces, right? Pisces that's ruled by Neptune. So yeah, he became the Pope. Definitely seems, very important. Maybe the year of the horse is the one to really watch too. Been following the year of the tiger, but the year of the horse seems very interesting. So whatever, I'm going to go back to this. I don't know, just sparked my brain. I was thinking about Michael Jordan in 923 and, interesting that Michael Jordan's dad would die on Neptunalia. And there's a whole lot more that goes along with this, but like my Uncle Barney actually died on, or his birthday was 7/23 as well, which is Neptunalia. And I'm just bringing that up. His death was like where I'd really, really started following this pattern with the Jesuits and so on. So his death was also important to the angel Gabriel and why I had that dream theme that was really going on. So in relation to 144, I just pointed out 322, also 144 days after Biden met Pope Francis. That's supposed to say as president, but 322, that number of skull and bones, right? And think about the Batman, where they show the number 322 before the stadium collapses in the 2012 Batman film. And then in the 33rd episode of the Batman TV series, you find out that Batman's great-great-grandfather, I think it was, is the founder of Skull and Bones. In relation to assassinated presidents, too, James Garfield was a president who got assassinated at a train station. So, and there was a train wreck in 2016. It was in Chester, Pennsylvania, I think it was, and that's where William Penn actually arrived when he landed in America. And of course, William Penn in Pennsylvania, and William Penn actually got granted the land from King Charles or whatever on the date 3/4, the same day as the Batman movie that came out. But I have a blog post right around that same time where Joe Biden was in the news saying that he would have made a good president. And I talked all about the number 46 and how Joe Biden may get his chance yet, So, and I didn't even know reverse gematria at that time and how the word Catholic equaled 46. But, I had an interesting theory about how Biden or Obama would possibly die and a bunch of stuff. So, who knows, but 322's 212 days before Kamala's birthday. Her name's 212. Her name's also 222 when John Bon Jovi equals 222. And, Herbert Hoover born on the 222nd day. And the word Amtrak equals 222. Pretty sure that's why we got the new Bel Air show too, right? About Philadelphia. Or it's in Bel Air, but it involves Philadelphia. But the Fresh Prince of Bel Air equals 222. Which, by the way, I'd actually kind of like that show. It's actually kind of good. It's not really, it's more serious, but Carlton's kind of a fucking dick in it, but, you know, it's actually kind of good. It kept me interested, but. Pope Francis became Pope a span of 3 months, 22 days after Biden's birthday. So. JFK equals 152 in the Fibonacci cipher, just like Joe Biden and Kamala Devi Harris. Just thinking about the horse theme too, right? Bon Jovi, the Dead or Alive song that was playing when I got in the car to begin with. He says, "On a steel horse I ride." So maybe there's something important to the horse theme. Steel. The album that he released in 2015, just before the Pope Francis came to America, was called Burning Bridges. Something else I've talked about with Philadelphia a whole lot. Came out on 21/8 even, on August 6th, once again. August 6th, typically the 218th day of the year. Twin Towers, 218. Osama bin Laden, 218. Big number with 9/11. That's why Tisha B'Av falling on that day is very important. And Bon Jovi was also part of the people who performed when Joe Biden was inaugurated too. So hopefully that makes sense, you know. I know a lot of people don't understand it because you got to be following what I've been talking about and really pay attention to these details. And a lot of people in the truth community just don't want to, you know, they don't want to be detailed and think about it. They just want me to just say this means blood sacrifice and that's it. But that's not really how this knowledge actually works. If you really pay attention to it, you really pay attention to the patterns of your life, it could mean that, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that. Something I've been trying to get across to people, but, you know, like I said, most people are still programmed and they want to hear everything is the Jesuits and so on. And it's not that I disagree that, you know, they play a big role in the Catholic Church. I mean, just look at the Catholic colony and, you know, the headquarters of Freemasonry and everything else. And I mean, it's just so obvious there is some type of cabal that exists, but this not, you know, a lot of the ways that people use gematria is not the proper way to be using gematria because they're speculating things that aren't necessarily true. And even if they do come true, it still just proves the pattern exists. It doesn't prove what they're speculating. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, just because the word ritual equals 27, that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a ritual, you know, or a ritual sacrifice or something, you know. Maybe it's important to the number 103 because it's the, you know, 27th prime is 103, and maybe it's synced to the stock market crash. And if you look, I guarantee it would be. So you can't necessarily say, oh, that means this, when it can mean like a plethora of other things. And a lot of people can't grasp this, you know. I hate talking about it, but I just see it over and over and over and over. And, you know, I'm connecting these things to, I don't have to connect it to the Jesuits and so on. The reason that I did in this video is because a lot of the old stuff that I connected was because I was doing it that way. And that's how this knowledge works. I look back at these old things and why they were important to the new things that are coming up in my life. And you follow patterns, you know, so. But a lot of people just can't grasp it, and it's okay, you know. I'll just keep making videos and whatever, but we'll see what happens today now. I'm interested. 3:10. I feel like there's, I don't know, maybe I'm going to wake up and have some crazy synchronicities, and something definitely important today, though. So we'll leave it at that. Have a good one. Peace.